I don't think there's anything wrong with just saying everybody go to your corners and we'll figure out when the right time is. Sometimes you have to let the air out of the situation.
Yes.
You know, like my read on that, on what happened now with even more time to think about it, like I still say what I said then. You can't treat Oettinger like that. You can pull him from the game, that's fine, but you can't do it that way. You can't have him come to the bench for a timeout, leave to go back into the net, and then yell at him in front of the whole building, "Oh no, you're out," and then rip him post-game. I think the players thought that was over the line. And, you know, the only time I can remember anything like that similar is I remember a few years ago when Justin Pogge was playing goal for the Leafs. Ron Wilson was coaching the Leafs, and they were having a rough night, and Wilson called a timeout, and Pogge stayed in his net, and Wilson called Pogge to the bench and yelled at him in front of the whole building. And I remember Don Cherry went on the air and he ripped Ron Wilson for that. Like, just clobbered him for that. And I remember I was reminded by one of the players on that team reached out to me on the weekend and said, that's the closest thing I can think to it. Now, I think Pogge stayed in the game, but, you know, Wilson gave it to him in front of the whole building. And he just said, like, I thought that was over the line. But, you know, it was interesting. Like, one coach was telling me that when he saw DeBoer react like that, he said that there could only be two things going through DeBoer's mind. Number one, he was worried the Stars window was closing. You know, they've changed. They've changed from a really, and this is actually one of the things Ghilardi talked about in the interview with Kalashaw. They've changed from a really heavy team to a more skilled team. And this coach wondered if maybe DeBoer wasn't sure that this was going to work. And the second thing he thought about was DeBoer saying, like, this is my third straight year in the final with this team. How many more chances am I going to get? Like, you look at the West is murder. Edmonton, they've now been to the final 2 years in a row. Colorado is a hell of a team. Winnipeg led the President's Trophy wire to wire this year. Vegas is Vegas. You always know they're going to be really good and demanding to be really good. Like, you know, the guy said actually to make the Western Conference Final 3 straight years is pretty good. But, you know, eventually you think, how long is this going to last? And he thinks that DeBoer reacted that way because he wondered if DeBoer was worried it was slipping away from him. It wasn't going to be like this again. But whatever the reason, you know, the other thing too was DeBoer mentioned that Oettinger had seen a lot of action and he had been a little bit sick, battling a respiratory thing. I wonder if everybody would have felt better about this if DeBoer had said that after the game instead of the next day. But I think that, to me, only leads credence to the whole chaotic nature of the moment.
Yes. And when the emotions were at its peak, all of that factors in. Okay, let's get to the final thought, which is brought to you by GMC. Elliot, congratulations to the London Knights, winners of the 2025 Memorial Cup Championship out in Rimouski, defeating the Medicine Hat Tigers.
They always find a way.
Oh, boy.
The Hunters always find a way.
They just came up short against Saginaw a year ago, and it was very much redemption. I think a lot of the same players were back with the Knights this year, and they got the job done, defeating Medicine Hat in the final. And throughout Memorial Cup week, and of course it's been a talking point all season, but it's felt like it's really come into focus again over the last few days, is the new rule of NCAA eligibility for Canadian Hockey League players, especially with some of the names that have been out there recently, right? So Cole Reshny Keaton Verhoff, 2 players from the Victoria Royals. I mean, Reshny expected to be a first-round pick this year. Verhoff could be a very high draft pick next year. They're going committed to the University of North Dakota. I mean, Gavin McKenna's name has been out there. Caden Lindstrom, there was a report a little while back from Aaron Portsline that things were shaping up. He could be off to Michigan State next season. The Penn State Hockey X account had the eye emojis, which made everybody wonder what was going on there. With all of this going on, I'm just curious, like, might as well check in on where you're at with things here, what you've heard and talking to people that are embedded in this world. Where do you think this all stands as now you're seeing some prominent names rumored or confirmed to be leaving the Canadian Hockey League and heading to the NCAA?
There's a lot to unpack here. Number one, it's more choice for players, and I like that. I grew up in an era where, in the NCAA especially, coaches could leave schools at any time, but a player, if they wanted to transfer, had to sit out for a year. And I always thought that was terrible. Players should have the same right as a coach does. Now the pendulum has swung the other way, and it's chaos. And if you're an NCAA hockey fan with the transfer portal, you've seen the chaos for a few years now. Like, it's bananas, the player movement. And now, for the first time, we're really seeing it with the CHL and the NCAA. So nobody really knows where we're going here yet. They have an idea. We're starting to see more players, but nobody really knows long-term what this is all going to mean. The thing I really believe is that this is not going to be one size fits all. This is going to be on a case-by-case basis. Like, I was talking to a bunch of agents, or if they're in the NCAA, family advisors over the last few days to ask them about the landscape. And they said there are some players who had the option to leave the CHL and go to the NCAA, and they were like, no, we're good here. We think this is more of a pro environment, more games. They just said we don't need to take visits. We're happy where we are. And great. There were some other players who said, you know what, I'm going to take a visit. I'm going to see what it's all about. And when they went into places like North Dakota, or they went into places like Michigan, and they saw the facilities there, they were like, holy smokes, this is incredible. I want to try this. And I can't fault those guys either. And so, you know, like, here's the thing, like, not every NCAA school is the same. Some of these NCAA schools are powerhouses. Some others are smaller budgets. It's just like the CHL. You know, who won the Memorial Cup this year? London, the biggest of the big. Well, not everybody's a London. There are smaller markets and smaller teams that won't be able to do some of the things that London can do. So it's a case-by-case and a team-by-team basis. Someone's going to walk into, as we said, North Dakota or Michigan and be blown away. Others are going to walk into other schools and they're going to say, it's no different than what I've got here. I think the other thing I heard too is that there are some older CHL players that indicated they like the idea of playing against older players. Like, if you're 19 years old, you're one of the oldest guys in the CHL if you're 19 or 20. If you go to college and you're 19 or 20, you could be among the youngest. And I heard that really appealed to some guys, that they like the idea of playing against men and seeing how that felt or how they handled it. You know, the other thing too, Kyle, is, are you going to be happy with your situation? Like, players can come back until January 10th. That's the deadline. And I think the CHL is wondering, are there going to be players who go, don't find it to their liking, and then they come back to their previous teams, or does their previous team trade them? But you're going to have the opportunity to come back until January 10th. And I think that that's what this is going to come down to. I think it's going to be, Merrick had the commissioner of the Quebec Junior League, and he talked about, okay, should we have car dealers paying players like the NIL guys in the States? And again, some teams are going to be able to do that, but some teams aren't. So I just think right now it's going to be case by case. Some guys are going to do it, some guys aren't. But I think one of the things is that I was talking to someone in the CHL about it the other day, and I said, you're just going to have to be better. You should look at it as this is going to force us to be better. Like, there's going to be some kids, like as we said, they're going to say, I want to try this, I want to jump, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. They have the right to make that choice. But what a CHL team has got to be asking now is, are we doing everything in our power